Technology is all around us. We use it in most all facets of our lives, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be safe while doing so. What kinds of scams and cyber dangers are out there? And how can we protect ourselves? That's coming up next on WNIN Newsmakers. With us is Brian Burkett, Business Manager for Lieberman Technologies, to talk about all things cybersecurity. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with, what are some of the most prevalent cyber crimes that you see or you're aware of in this area?
So when it comes to businesses, for example, I'd say business email compromise is probably the biggest threat that businesses are facing. Individuals are subject to all kinds of things, whether it is social media scams or things in their email, text messages. There's a lot of scams going around like that right now.
What do you mean by email compromise? What exactly?
So business email compromise can take on a lot of different forms. It can be anything from someone actually hacking the credentials of your business email account and having access to your Microsoft 365 or your Google Suite, or it can be things like social engineering. Say your email has been spoofed and it looks like it's from you, and an email sent to one of your friends, and maybe they purchased some gift cards that you supposedly told them to purchase, but it really wasn't you. There's a lot of different ways that can look when it comes to business email compromise.
So if someone is hacked, what are the steps they need to take, to get it resolved?
Sure. So when it comes to in a business setting, the most important thing is to make sure that they contact their IT department immediately so that they can begin to take some remediation steps there. And from that point, it could be a myriad of things. Now, if it's on the personal side, one of the things that we certainly recommend people have, if it has to do with perhaps their identity being compromised, is hopefully they have some kind of identity theft protection, like an insurance policy in place that can help to take some steps to remediate there. But making sure that you have backups for your accounts. In other words, there's somebody else that can help you get back into your account is an important thing. There's several steps that an individual might take to begin to remediate, but the most important thing is to be on the front end and trying to prevent it from happening if you can.
So if a business is hacked, do they also need to contact law enforcement? Or, what should they? In
many cases, yes. Particularly compliance-driven industries, such as medical and financial. Many times they have requirements to report to the authorities, whether it's the local authorities or the federal authorities, to make sure that they're involved in the process of investigation, and then also what steps are being taken to remediate and help prevent it from happening again in the future.
So that's what I was going to say. I could see where maybe there would be a pattern where they're not just hitting that business, chances are they're hitting others.
So depends on the goals of the hacking organization. Sometimes you have organizations that are looking for the low-hanging fruit, and sometimes they have very targeted attacks against specific companies or specific industries, just again, depending on the type of hacking company it is. And I use the term hacking company on purpose. These hackers are extremely well organized. Jimmy Hoffa would be envious of the organization that these cybercrime mafias have in place.
Well, and I'm always saying, if they would put their powers and their skills to good use,
right.
My word, it just seems like they could accomplish so much positive
Sure.
things with the...
Absolutely.
Well, are there any services for organizations to check the security of what they have in place?
Sure. So there are a few things that organizations can do. One is doing a regular dark web scan, seeing what credentials are out there on the dark web already. What that can do is help inform a company of the already compromised things and then take steps to remediate those. So it may be that you run a dark web scan and let's say that you've got 30 employees and you find out that 15 of them have what appears to be your company's credentials to be able to get into your network out there on the dark web. Well, that's something that you can remediate. You can't get rid of it on the dark web, but you can make that information obsolete by changing those credentials. Something else that businesses can do is have a variety of services come in. It can be anything from as simple as an audit of your IT setup to actually hiring white hat hackers to try to come in and hack your organization from a good guy perspective, if that makes sense. So what they're trying to do is find the holes that are there before the bad guys find the holes.
So in other words, there are good hackers and there are bad hackers.
There are good hackers and bad hackers, yes.
So if you're a small business and you don't necessarily have the IT person, so you're saying they could get an IT, I mean, you can use another business.
You can, absolutely. So many smaller organizations, they may have somebody who's kind of IT by default, or they may even have an IT manager who really they're focused on just the day-to-day, trying to keep the IT, keep your printers connected, keep the applications opening the way that they should. They may not have time to focus on the security side of things. And that's where, whether they've got that person or they don't have anybody at all and they're really just flying by the seat of their pants, they can hire an outsourced IT company to come in and handle not only the day-to-day IT, but if they don't have somebody that does that, but they can also wrap around cybersecurity services to help protect the organization. And in today's world, in 2023, one of the most important statistics that we can share with people right now is that since the pandemic, the FBI tells us that cybercrime is up 600%.
Really?
And that is across all businesses and individuals and everything else. So it's, operating without a cybersecurity posture for your business in 2023 is like taking a knife to a gunfight.
Oh my gosh, so that was what I was going to ask next is, how does a business know if they need that? You're saying if you're in business, you need it.
If you're in business, you need to have cybersecurity measures in place in 2023.
Well, okay, something else you had mentioned a while ago also was having insurance.
Sure.
What type of insurance would that be? Who provides that?
Sure, so on the individual side, we were talking more about like ID theft protection, those types of things. But in the business realm, I think everybody in our industry would say to a business owner, it's not a matter of if you're going to get hacked. It's a matter of when you're going to get hacked. Even if you have great cybersecurity measures in place, all it takes is one person in your organization clicking on the wrong thing or bypassing a protocol, and then the whole thing falls apart. And so property and casualty insurance companies, as a general rule, are the ones who are writing cyber liability insurance for companies. It used to be a rider that you could just get tacked onto your policy, no real underwriting. What we're finding is that insurance companies are fully underwriting cyber insurance now because they've been getting hammered with claims. And so by going through this underwriting process and making sure that you have certain security measures in place, they're lowering their risk of a claim, obviously. But yes, you can have that in place, and we recommend that even our clients who take all of our recommendations still have cyber liability insurance in place, because if that hack does occur, it's extremely expensive to deal with that.
Oh my gosh. Now I know you mentioned, I think you used the number of 600% increase, which is crazy. And you mentioned it happened since COVID. Was it something because they had so much idle time that they could get better at this? I mean,
some of that. One of the things that we noticed is that there were a lot of companies that were not yet set up to truly handle remote work in a secure fashion. And so you would have people just jumping onto whatever Wi-Fi they could get to do the day-to-day tasks that they had, and it may not be going through secure channels. So that's one area where we saw some security risk increase. And also, it's a law of large numbers. If you take more at-bats, you're going to get more hits. And they certainly increased their attacks because they saw these kinds of either low-hanging fruit or poor security measures in place, and were able to increase their success rate, unfortunately.
Well, when you were talking also about maybe wireless or the internet isn't secure, do you have any recommendations for people of like, is it okay to jump on the Wi-Fi at the hotel or at Starbucks or wherever you happen to see, or it has the internet available? Should you be cautious when you're doing that, or?
You should 100% be cautious.
I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of doing it. So.
If you don't know the network and you're not sure that it's the network, you should stay off of it. And even if you get on it, it doesn't mean that there's any security measures in place to protect you. So there are several VPN clients that you can add to your phone, for example, that can help secure and encrypt the data that's going across if you do jump on public Wi-Fi. But as a general rule, it's better to just stay on whatever your 4G or 5G data plan is, because it's going to be about as protected as you can get. But even at that level, there's still an argument to be made for layering in a third-party VPN client to your phone to help encrypt the data that's going across there.
So even if let's say you're at a nice hotel and they have the internet, you don't necessarily want to connect to that?
I wouldn't trust it.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm writing that down. So how can someone keep up to date on the current trends in the cyber reality realm?
Well, so for individuals, actually for individuals and business alike, there are several resources out there that push out information on cybersecurity, whether it's on your favorite YouTube channel or podcast or just various cybersecurity news websites. And it's a resource for something else that I was going to mention today, is the National Institute for Standards and Technology. It's called NIST. They have a fantastic wealth of resources on their website. It's nist.org. And there you can learn quite a bit about cybersecurity. It's good for individuals, and it's also good for businesses to spend some time on that website. In fact, just talking about being up to date, security awareness training is probably the most important type of training that you can do inside of a business. When you talk about security, a lot of times we talk about having updated hardware and updated software. So, your operating systems and your firewalls and your PCs and your servers, making sure that all of those are up to date. Well, really the most important operating system that you can have up to date, the most important firewall that you can have up to date is your human firewall, your human operating system. And so security awareness training is huge. If your business that you work for offers security awareness training, I would highly recommend treat it like an employee benefit and take it seriously, because anything that keeps you safer at work is also going to keep you safer in your personal life. Now, if your business doesn't offer security awareness training, or let's say you're retired or not working and you want to be up to date on it, at nist.org, they have actually some links to either free or low-cost security awareness training platforms that are out there, where you can at least get some good baseline knowledge of what you need to do to be able to interact with technology in a secure fashion.
So how often does somebody need to do that? I mean, I'm guessing that it's changing all the time. There are different scams. I mean, how often would you need to have the training?
Yeah, so I'll answer that with a couple of things. So you talked about how fast it's changing. It's changing very quickly. So, and one of the things that's a great tool, but also it's a great tool for good, and it's also a great tool for evil, is artificial intelligence. And so hackers can use artificial intelligence to be able to figure out easier ways to hack people with less resources. But the good news is that artificial intelligence can also be used to help combat those measures. Now, in terms of frequency of training, for example, with our clients that we work with, we're pushing out at least a couple of different kinds of trainings per month to help keep people up to date on the latest types of threats. And also just to keep them aware. It may not even have anything to do with new threats. It may just being aware in general of how to use technology safely, so that when you see something that maybe it is a new type of threat, you're still suspicious of it because you've been kept aware of the types of things that hackers might do.
Okay. So, and isn't it a lot of times, I mean, it's kind of gut. I mean, if it looks wrong, it looks suspicious, I mean, just stay away from it. I mean,
think before you click is probably the best piece of advice that you can give anybody. Think before you click every time.
Talking about clicking, though, if they just open the email from somebody who's suspicious, that's not bad, right? It's the clicking on the link inside, or is that correct?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
It's very hard for something to actually deploy without clicking either an attachment or a link inside of an email. So generally, that answer is yes.
A lot of people are using their phones as their main connection for the online service. I mean, it seems like really our phones are like little computers now.
They are.
I mean, in essence. How safe is your phone as far as keeping hackers out?
So the beauty of cybersecurity principles is that they apply across the board. So one of the most important things is to make sure that you keep the phone operating system up to date. So when your iPhone or Android says, hey, there's an update available for your phone,
Do it.
take the time to do it and do it as quickly as you can. You may be in the middle of something and can't do it that minute, or maybe you can't even do it during that work day. Do it before you go to bed. Get it done that day. The reason being is because if they're pushing that update out, most of the updates that come out are actually security. It's not normally features and functionality that's coming out. Most of the security or most of the updates that come out are security patches.
Really? And see, here I was thinking it was just a new emoji package. So.
Sometimes it is.
Right.
Most of the time, it's a security patch for some vulnerability that's been found in the operating system. And so when it comes out, they already know that the vulnerability is there, which means the hackers know the vulnerability is there.
Okay.
So get it applied as soon as possible. Same goes for all the applications that you run on your phones. But beyond that, also the age of your phone. Some people have to have the latest and greatest iPhone or Pixel or Samsung or whatever it is that comes out, and they get a new one every year. Some people like me like to hang on to the phone for as long as I can until it dies, right? Because I don't need all the latest and greatest, even though I work in tech. iPhone, for example, promises to keep their operating system updated, I think, for 7 years. Android is all over the map in terms of, because there's just different manufacturers for it. So it's important to pay attention to the age of your device as well, because there becomes a point where the manufacturer no longer supports any kind of updates for the devices.
Oh, so just by having an older or aging phone, you could be opening yourself up.
Absolutely.
Oh, I was not aware of that at all. That's another reason to upgrade.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Are there other things that can make it safer, like cloud services or different apps?
Sure. So going back to some of the questions about connecting to hotel Wi-Fi or Starbucks Wi-Fi, those VPN clients can be good to help encrypt data. There are some mobile device antivirus type or security features, like there's Lookout. Lookout's a good app for there's other ones like it that can help layer in security for your mobile device. In businesses, it would be important to have some kind of a mobile device policy, in terms of access to the data that's for the business. Do you have some way to be able to remotely remove that information from the device? So that's another consideration there as well. If there's any kind of proprietary information on this phone, can my company remove that if I no longer work there? There's also just the matter of how you use the device and dealing with passwords, your credentials into these applications that you might use is incredibly important in terms of the security of the devices that you're using.
A lot of times I've seen on even just Facebook, for example, oh, my aunt so-and-so has been hacked, and I'm sure, but when I go back and look, she has no privacy settings on her Facebook account, and people, they just don't know that, and the importance of that.
And that's such a hard one, because you want to look out for them, right? And so if they are open to it and they're open to some assistance with what they're doing, take the time and love on your family and sit down with them for a few minutes and help them get some of those security settings in place.
So I used to ignore, if I could tell it was somebody pretending to be someone. And a lot of times I would ignore them or delete them, but really, shouldn't you report those when they show up on your page?
Absolutely. And so a lot of times people will say that they've been hacked if there's a cloned account that's out there. They really haven't been hacked. It's just that somebody is making an account that looks like their account, trying to trick other people. Okay. It is still a cyber attack. It is absolutely a cyber attack, but it's not that my Facebook has been compromised or my Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. It's not that my Instagram has been compromised. It's that somebody has created an account that looks like it, trying to connect with my legitimate connections to begin doing social engineering with them, tell them maybe that, I'm stuck somewhere and I need money, whatever it is that they're trying to do, those kinds of things.
Yeah. So you should report them.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to do, because I have started doing it. You just report and they...
Yep.
I'm not sure what they do with it, but I have.
Sometimes they don't do anything with it, right? Unfortunately.
I'm sure. What about things like LifeLock and stuff like that? Is that something people should invest in?
Sure. So getting into LifeLock is getting back to the ID theft protection, those types of things. It's definitely not a bad idea to have it, because if your identity does get stolen or if your accounts are compromised, just the soft cost of dealing with that is an amazing nightmare. So, let's say that it cost you $500 because they got into something. Well, by the time you've dealt with it, when you actually factor in your time, it might have cost you $3,000. And so having some insurance in place, whether it's through LifeLock, I know Dave Ramsey has something through one of his providers as well. There are resources out there for ID theft protection and remediation that are out there on the individual side.
Okay, that's good to know, and so that really is a form of insurance.
It is.
Just use that word. Okay. So I know a lot of times we're prompted. I want to talk about passwords for just a moment.
Sure.
And they prompt us to use a strong password, and often one that can be provided and saved. Is it safe to have your device remember your passwords for you? Please say yes, because I do that all the time.
Sorry. The answer to that is no. Oh. It is not safe to do that. So, here's the thing about passwords. If your password today is mug,
okay,
and you get prompted to change it, what are you going to change it to?
Mug 2.
And if they tell you have to put a special character on it, what's the special character going to be?
Mug 2 exclamation mark.
If I asked that question to 100 people, 99% of them would say the exact same thing you just did, or some very close variant of it. So if we know that just having this conversation, the hackers know that too. So passwords and password management is a huge deal. Now, before we go too far down that road, there are certain services that are moving to what's called passwordless authentication, where there's some different type of authentication that they'll have for you to get into that service. But that's not ubiquitous yet. So for the foreseeable future, passwords are going to be a thing on many services. And it's important to have complex, hard-to-hack passwords. I've got a chart somewhere that shows number of characters and how long it takes for a program to hack it. There's a whole rabbit hole you can go down with quantum computing and hacking as well, but in short, the answer is you need to have unique, complex passwords for every account that you use. Now, when I say that, and if I told you that somebody's going to put a gun to your head and you had to do that, your anxiety would probably shoot through the roof, right?
Yes. So
there are services out there called password managers that you can subscribe to. Some of them are free for individuals. You don't have to have a paid version. But those password managers are tools that live outside of your browser. So it's a separate thing that would have to be hacked. You only have to remember one hard to guess but easy for you to remember passphrase. You remember that passphrase, couple it with some kind of multi-factor authentication to help make it more secure, whether that's a text message, biometrics like your Face ID or thumbprint, some kind of biometric or other type of multi-factor authentication. That application will then remember all of your passwords. It will even generate unique passwords for every single one of those sites or services that you're using. And it will remember all of them for you and automatically log them in for you. And I have absolutely no idea what 75% of my passwords are, but my password manager does.
So is the password manager on your phone or on your computer?
It's
how
both.
do you access it?
So, yeah, great question. On my computer, it's a browser attachment. It's attached inside of my Chrome. And so I log into that, I authenticate into it, and when I go to sites, it will then plug that into the sites or the services that I'm going on to. On my phone, it's a separate app.
Okay. Oh my gosh, it kind of makes my head go.
Well, here's the, when I was in college, I worked for a law firm, and I was a runner for them. And so it was a large law firm in Montgomery, Alabama, where I grew up. And our warehouse for our files was across the street. It was a 3-story building. If one of the attorneys needed something from, 1982, it was probably on the top floor where, there was file cabinets that were sitting on rotted wood that you had to get back to. But I had to have a key to that building, and I had to have a key to that particular file cabinet. A lot of times when people think about multi-factor authentication, they get overwhelmed by it. But in reality, it's not. It's another 5 seconds. I open up the app, it authenticates me in, and then I'm into that service. And that 5 seconds can save you 5 months of remediation if you ever get hacked.
So, and will that also come up with the passwords for you?
Yes, it will create the passwords for you.
Okay.
It will save them for you. Many of the services that are out there, if that password ever does end up out on the dark web, you know, because one of the services that I'm subscribed to got hacked, and so my credentials are now for, let's say, LinkedIn are out on the dark web. Well, many times those password managers have enough intelligence inside of them to say, oh, that's out there on the dark web. They'll let you know, and then they'll ask you if you want to generate a new password for it, and it'll do it, and it'll save it, and take care of the
Okay.
whole thing for you.
So if I go on a news site or whatever, and I have to create a password, and it offers me that option, create strong password, should I still just be creating my own, or go what?
No, you would use the password manager to create it.
To create that
for
for that
password for that website.
Okay, goodness, all right. It's a lot, but,
is.
and then I think there are other things like the multi-step verification. A lot of places use it. You absolutely want to do that, right?
Yes, it's not hack-proof,
Sure.
but it's another layer. Cybersecurity is a multi-layered onion. Somebody one time said, not everybody likes onions, but everybody likes cakes. So it's a multi-layered cake. And so multi-factor authentication is one more step that hackers would have to figure out a way to be able to get that from you to get into your accounts.
Okay, so just kind of wrap things up a little bit. I know a lot of times people think, well, I'm not a business, I don't have a lot of money, it doesn't matter, but I think it goes back to you need to be safe from hackers to help protect the people you know even.
Absolutely. Anything that, you know, if I'm compromised and I'm connected to a business owner that really trusts me, the compromise that I've suffered could potentially affect that business owner as well. And a lot of businesses even think, well, just I'm small potatoes. You know, I don't, who wants what I've got? Well, the truth is, again, there are many of those hacks out there that are just looking for low-hanging fruit and people that don't have security measures in place that maybe they only get $3,000 or $4,000 out of you instead of $3 or $4 million. But it just kind of depends on what that particular focus for that organization is. So everybody needs to take cybersecurity seriously.
And all that adds up. Even if they're getting $500 from several people,
It adds up very
it's a nice
quickly.
day's work.
It is a nice day's work. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I've gotten a lot out of this. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks to our guests for joining us to talk about cybersecurity and keeping our information safe. Join us next week where we cover everything you need to know for this year's election. Thanks for watching WNIN Newsmakers.